In just 41 seconds, one of Hollywood's most respected actors completely shut down a talk show host on live television, creating an explosion of tension that ended with him walking off the set in absolute disgust. What started as a conversation about his legendary career turned into a brutal takedown of disrespectful journalism that left the entire studio in complete shock. Before we dive into this absolute mess, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that reveal who these people really are behind the cameras. Last night's episode of the Tamron Hall Show was supposed to celebrate Denzel Washington's incredible 40-year career in Hollywood. The legendary actor, known for films like Training Day, Malcolm X, and The Equalizer, walked onto the stage to thunderous applause from the studio audience. He wore a simple gray suit, looking as dignified and composed as ever. Tamron Hall greeted him with a huge smile, shaking his hand enthusiastically as they both sat down in the purple chairs that face each other on her set. The conversation started off pleasant enough. Tamron asked Denzel about his latest project, a film about redemption and second chances that he not only starred in but also directed. Denzel spoke thoughtfully about the themes in the movie, about how everyone deserves grace, about how quick society is to judge people without knowing their full story. His voice was calm and measured, the way it always is when he talks about his work. The audience listened carefully, hanging on every word from the Oscar-winning actor. "You've always chosen roles with such depth," Tamron said, leaning forward in her chair. "Characters who are flawed but fighting for something better. Is that intentional?" Denzel nodded. "I'm drawn to human stories, real stories. Nobody's perfect, and I think the most interesting characters are the ones who know they're imperfect but keep trying anyway. That's what life is about." The audience clapped at this, and Tamron smiled widely. But then something shifted in her expression. She glanced down at her notes, and when she looked back up, there was a different energy in her eyes, something more aggressive, more confrontational. "Speaking of imperfect," Tamron said, her tone changing completely, "let's talk about some of the criticism you've faced over the years." Denzel's expression didn't change, but anyone watching closely could see his shoulders tense slightly. "Okay," he said carefully. "There's been talk in Hollywood circles about you being difficult to work with," Tamron continued, and there was almost a satisfaction in her voice as she said it. "Multiple sources have described you as demanding, controlling on set, and unwilling to take direction. How do you respond to that?" The audience went quiet. This wasn't the celebration they'd been promised. This was an ambush. Denzel took a slow breath. "First of all, who are these multiple sources you're talking about? Because in 40 years, I've worked with hundreds of people, and I maintain relationships with almost all of them, so I'd like to know who's saying this." Tamron waved her hand dismissively. "Well, I can't reveal my sources, but the reports are out there. You can't deny that people have said these things." "People say a lot of things," Denzel replied, his voice still controlled but with an edge now. "That doesn't make them true. And if you're going to sit here and accuse me of something on your show, I think I have the right to face my accusers. That's basic fairness." "I'm not accusing you of anything," Tamron said quickly, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm just asking you to address what's being said in the industry." "What industry?" Denzel leaned forward now. "Be specific. Who in the industry? Give me one name. Just one." Tamron shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable with being pressed. "Look, this isn't about naming names. This is about your reputation and giving you a chance to respond." "But there's nothing to respond to if you won't tell me what you're actually talking about," Denzel said, his frustration becoming more visible. "You're asking me to defend myself against ghosts, against anonymous whispers. That's not journalism, Tamron. That's gossip." The audience was completely silent now. You could feel the tension radiating through the studio. Some people looked uncomfortable, others excited by the brewing confrontation. The cameras kept rolling. Tamron tried to regain control of the conversation. "Okay, let's move on then. Let's talk about diversity in Hollywood. You've been one of the few black actors to maintain leading man status for decades. But some critics say you haven't done enough to help other black actors and filmmakers coming up behind you. What's your response to that?" Denzel's jaw tightened. He stared at Tamron for a long moment before responding. "That's a damn lie, and you know it." Tamron's eyes widened slightly at his language, but she pressed on. Is it though? When was the last time you used your influence to get a young black director hired on one of your films? 3 months ago, Denzel shot back immediately. On the movie we're supposed to be here talking about, which you clearly didn't bother to research. The director is a 29-year-old black woman from Atlanta who'd never directed a feature film before. I fought the studio to give her that shot. I put my own reputation on the line for her. So before you sit there and question my commitment to my community, maybe do your homework. Tamron looked flustered, flipping through her notes quickly. Well, I wasn't aware of that specific situation, but of course you weren't, Denzel interrupted, his voice rising now. Because you didn't prepare for this interview. You came in here with a bunch of tabloid talking points, trying to create some dramatic moment for your show instead of having a real conversation. That's not fair, Tamron protested. I'm asking legitimate questions that people want answered. What people? Denzel demanded. Who wants this answered? Did your audience write in asking if I'm mean on set? Or did your producers decide that a respectful interview about my work wouldn't get enough clicks, so they told you to go for the jugular instead? Tamron's face flushed. I resent the implication that I'm not in control of my own show. Then take control of it, Denzel said sharply. Have the kind of conversation you'd want someone to have with you. With respect. With actual research. With integrity. The audience was completely captivated now. Some people nodding in agreement with Denzel. Others looking shocked at how heated things had gotten. Tamron took a sip of water from the glass on the table next to her, clearly trying to compose herself. Look, she said, attempting a softer tone. I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Let's refocus. I want to talk about your family, your children. You've kept them largely out of the spotlight, which many people admire. But there's been some speculation about tension between you and your son, John David, especially regarding his acting career. Can you address whether there's any truth to rumors of a rift? Denzel's entire demeanor changed. If he'd been frustrated before, now he was angry. Really angry. His voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. Now you're going after my family. I'm not going after anyone, Tamron said defensively. I'm asking about public speculation. Public speculation, Denzel repeated slowly. Do you hear yourself? You're hiding behind these weasel words. People are saying. There's speculation. Sources report. How about this, I'm saying, right here, right now, that my relationship with my son is none of your damn business. It's not entertainment. It's not content for your show. It's my life. My family's life. But as a public figure, Tamron started. I'm a public figure because of my work, Denzel cut her off. Because of the movies I make, the characters I play. That's what I share with the public. My art, not my children, not my marriage, not my private conversations with my family. There's a line, Tamron, and you just crossed it. Tamron looked directly into the camera, as if appealing to the audience at home. I think viewers understand that when someone is as famous as Denzel Washington, there's natural curiosity about all aspects of their life. Curiosity doesn't entitle you to anything, Denzel said firmly. And you know what the real problem is here? You're a black woman hosting a talk show in an industry that doesn't give many black women that opportunity. You should understand better than anyone what it's like to have people disrespect you, dismiss your work, reduce you to gossip and speculation. But instead of using your platform to lift people up, to have meaningful conversations, you're doing exactly what they do to us. You're tearing down another black person for ratings. The audience gasped. This was a direct hit, and everyone knew it. Tamron's face went from flushed to pale. How dare you, she said quietly. How dare you use my race and my gender to deflect from legitimate questions? Legitimate, Denzel said, shaking his head. There's that word again. Nothing you've asked me today has been legitimate. You've been fishing for sound bites, hoping I'll say something you can clip and spread all over social media. Denzel admits he's difficult. Denzel confirms family drama. That's all this is. You're being incredibly defensive, Tamron said, her voice hardening, which makes people wonder what you're hiding. Denzel laughed, but there was no humor in it. There it is, the trap. If I don't answer your invasive questions, I must be hiding something. If I do answer them, You'll twist my words to mean whatever you want them to mean. It's a no-win situation. And you know it. I'm just doing my job, Tamron insisted. Your job, Denzel repeated. Is your job to ambush your guests? To make them uncomfortable on purpose? To prioritize drama over dignity? He paused, looking directly at her. Because if that's what you think your job is, then you're in the wrong profession. Tamron stood up suddenly, her microphone nearly falling off her lapel. You know what? I don't have to sit here and be lectured by you about how to do my job. I've been in journalism for 25 years. Then act like it, Denzel said, standing up as well. He was taller than her, and his presence seemed to fill the entire studio. Act like someone who cares about truth instead of gossip. Act like someone who respects the people who agree to come on your show and give you their time. The two of them stood there, facing each other, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this unbelievable confrontation. Tamron pointed her finger at Denzel. You came on my show. Nobody forced you to be here. If you didn't like the questions, you could have just given simple answers and moved on. But instead, you've turned this into a whole thing. And honestly, it reflects more on you than on me. A whole thing, Denzel said slowly. You ambush me with unsourced accusations, you question my dedication to my community, and then you drag my family into it, and I'm the one who made this a whole thing. Do you hear how that sounds? I hear someone who can't handle being asked tough questions. Tamron shot back. Tough questions, Denzel said, his voice rising. You want to know what a tough question is? A tough question is asking me about the choices I made in depicting Malcolm X, and whether I felt pressure to sanitize a controversial figure. A tough question is asking me how I reconcile making big-budget Hollywood movies while knowing how the industry exploits workers and promotes inequality. A tough question requires thought, preparation, and genuine curiosity. What you did today was lazy and mean-spirited, and you know it. Tamron crossed her arms. I disagree completely. I think you're just not used to being challenged. And the moment someone pushes back even a little, you can't handle it. Pushes back on what? Denzel demanded. You haven't challenged me on anything real. You've just thrown mud and hoped some of it would stick. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and just trying to make them look bad for your own benefit. You're making yourself look bad right now, Tamron said coldly. All on your own. Denzel stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached up and unclipped the microphone from his jacket. He held it in his hand, looking at it, then set it down on the chair where he'd been sitting. You know what? He said quietly, but his voice carried through the entire studio. I don't need this. I've spent 40 years building a career based on respect, hard work, and dignity. I've won awards. I've broken barriers. I've mentored countless young actors and filmmakers. I've used my platform to talk about important issues and to shine a light on stories that matter. And I've done all of that without tearing other people down, without spreading rumors, without playing games. He turned to face the audience. I'm sorry you all came here expecting to hear about my new movie, and instead got this circus. That's not your fault. It's not my fault either. But I will not sit here and be disrespected. I will not play along with this kind of entertainment that disguises itself as journalism. And I will not let anyone, including you, Tamron, question my integrity or my family without standing up for myself. Tamron opened her mouth to respond, but Denzel held up his hand. I'm not interested in hearing whatever you're about to say. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this interview. And honestly, I'm disappointed. I thought you were better than this. I really did. He turned and started walking toward the exit. The audience didn't know what to do. A few people started clapping hesitantly. Then more joined in, until about half the audience was applauding as Denzel walked off the stage. The other half sat in stunned silence. Tamron called after him, Denzel, come on, don't be like this. We can continue the conversation. But he didn't turn around. He didn't even slow down. He just kept walking, his back straight, his head held high, moving with purpose toward the studio doors. One of the producers rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently to Tamron, but she waved him away. She looked into the camera, trying to regain some composure. Well, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I guess that's all the time we have today. Sometimes conversations get heated when you're discussing real issues. That's what happens in honest dialogue. But nobody was buying it. The audience could see through it. The viewers at home could see through it. This wasn't honest dialogue, this was a disaster. And everyone knew who was responsible for it. Denzel reached the studio doors and pushed them open without looking back. The last thing the cameras caught was his silhouette disappearing into the hallway beyond, leaving behind a studio full of shocked people and a host who had just learned a very public lesson about respect. The producer finally managed to cut to commercial, but it was too late. The damage was done. In the control room, everyone was already trying to figure out how to handle the fallout from what had just happened. Social media was about to explode. News outlets were about to pick up the story. And Tamron Hall was about to face questions about her interview tactics that she probably wasn't prepared to answer. Back on the stage, Tamron sat down heavily in her chair, the fake smile gone from her face. She looked tired and defeated. The audience was buzzing with conversation, people turning to their neighbors to process what they'd just witnessed. Some were pulling out their phones, no doubt already typing up their reactions to share online. One thing was absolutely certain: this was not how anyone expected this interview to go. Denzel Washington, one of the most respected actors in Hollywood history, had just walked off a talk show after calling out the host for disrespectful journalism. It was the kind of moment that would be talked about for years to come. And through it all, Denzel's words echoed in the minds of everyone who heard them. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and just trying to make them look bad for your own benefit. Those words summed up everything that had gone wrong in those 41 seconds and the uncomfortable minutes that followed. Tamron had tried to create a viral moment, something shocking and dramatic that would get her show attention. Instead, she'd gotten exactly what she wanted, but not in the way she wanted it. The moment was viral, all right. But she was the one who looked bad. She was the one who'd been called out. She was the one left sitting alone on stage while one of Hollywood's biggest stars walked away. The studio lights felt harsh and unforgiving as Tamron collected her notes with shaking hands. Members of her production team hovered nervously at the edge of the stage, unsure whether to approach her or give her space. The audience was being ushered out by staff members, their excited chatter filling the studio as they processed the incredible confrontation they just witnessed. In the hallway beyond those studio doors, Denzel Washington was already in his dressing room, his assistant helping him gather his things. He was calm now, the anger from moments before replaced by a quiet dignity. He knew he'd done the right thing. He'd stood up for himself, for his family, and for the principle that even celebrities deserve basic respect. When his assistant asked if he was okay, Denzel nodded. "I'm fine," he said. "Sometimes you have to draw a line. Sometimes you have to say, enough is enough. That's what I did today." And that was exactly what he'd done. In front of millions of people who would watch the clip online, Denzel Washington had drawn a line. He'd shown that there are still some people in Hollywood who value dignity over drama, respect over ratings, and truth over tabloid tactics. The episode would never air in its entirety. The network would scramble to figure out how to handle it, what clips to release, what narrative to push. But the full story would get out anyway, because someone in that studio audience would record it on their phone. Someone would share it. And the world would see exactly what happened when a legendary actor refused to play along with a host's disrespectful games. As Denzel left the building through a side entrance, avoiding the small crowd of fans and press that had gathered at the front, he felt no regret about walking off that stage. He'd tried to have a civil conversation. He'd tried to redirect things toward more meaningful topics. But when someone repeatedly disrespects you, when they drag your family into their quest for sensational television, there's only one response that makes sense. You stand up, you speak your truth, and then you walk away with your head held high. That's exactly what Denzel Washington did on Tamron Hall's show last night. And it was one of the most powerful moments in recent talk show history. Not because of what was said, but because of what it represented: a refusal to accept disrespect, even when the cameras are rolling, even when walking away might make you look difficult or defensive. Because sometimes the most important thing isn't how you look. It's knowing who you are, and refusing to let anyone compromise that, no matter what platform they have or how bright the spotlight shines. The show that was supposed to celebrate a legendary career instead became a masterclass in standing up for yourself. And while Tamron Hall tried to control the narrative, tried to make it seem like Denzel was just being oversensitive, anyone who watched that confrontation knew the truth. Denzel Washington walked off that stage because he refused to be treated like gossip fodder. He walked off because 40 years of dignity and respect meant more to him than one talk show appearance. He walked off because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in your own disrespect. And in those 41 seconds when everything exploded, when the careful politeness of television gave way to raw, honest confrontation, Denzel reminded everyone watching that respect isn't just something you give to people when it's convenient. It's something you demand for yourself when others won't offer it freely. That's the real story of what happened on the Tamron Hall show last night. Not a celebrity tantrum or a diva moment, but a lesson in self-respect delivered by one of the greatest actors of all time to a host who had forgotten that entertainment should never come at the cost of basic human decency.